but I was making music that was similar to what was coming out of Texas at the time. Swisher House, Beltway 8, all those folks from Houston to Dallas. Yeah, but I was popping trunk as well.
There's like a multiplicity of style. And even my first book was a short story collection that had totally different registers of whether is this satire, is it pure realism, is taking in newness and seeing how what happens when it passes through me, which is another way of saying learning.
Yeah.
And seeing how that learning process grows my capacity to make whatever. Your taste is way bigger than your skill when you start in anything.
Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. This is an award-winning author. Was a New York Times bestseller. His novel Chain Gang All-Stars.
Because it's super popular.
Imagine the future. When you start off, you have an appreciation of what is good to you, and the gap between you and that is really large. So that can be really frustrating for some creatives.
The aspiration of having the admiration of your peers, and whether or not obsession, admiration, and their part in success is a negative thing, and I don't necessarily think so.
You will be judged harshly for trying to do something that matters to the world wrong. Almost more harshly than if you talked about bullshit about yourself.
Yeah. How you feeling about NOLA so far?
I love it. I tried to really quickly, me and my girl came with me. I had a po' boy.
Yeah.
I had gumbo. I had jambalaya already. So
that's
what my trips are focused around the food. And so it hasn't disappointed at all.
So, I'm so excited that you're here to chat with me.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that we've already been kind of talking about off air, just kind of cooler, is mindset shifts. And so how have mindset shifts shaped your creative journey?
It's a really big and broad question because I'm gonna go straight to kind of existential.
Yeah.
I think there's a really important shift has to happen actually for probably every writer or creative is if you come into creative stuff at all, but especially writing, probably something kind of bad happened to you. You're pretty sad.
Yeah.
Life has, no matter what bad things have happened to you, but usually there's some kind of wound or whatever.
Word.
And you're gonna be very my life is bad. I'm sad. This is a terrible thing that's happened to me. For me, it has to do with my mom's mental health or financial security, housing insecurity, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
But I think for me, a big shift that is still something that carries through to my writing now is it goes from me to us, all of us. This is I've been personally aggressed by the world versus the world is systematically shaped and designed to squeeze people in really painful ways.
Yeah.
And that shift to me is the biggest one because the work becomes what used to become really narrow becomes this universe.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge one. And then post-publishing a bunch of other shifts happen, I think. But that one from the me to the big we, the big us, the big it's almost realizing you're a small drop in this ocean of something. That feels like an important shift to me.
Yeah. That's heavy because I'm an aspiring writer myself, and I think about the kind of trajectory I've had in terms of my creative journey, and just thinking about, okay, this is first I think you're writing for yourself, right? Even creating for yourself. We were talking about how I used to be a rapper. I was I want to prove that I'm the best rapper in this space, right? And then you start opening up your lyrics to the world, right? Because at first everything's here and it's very introspective, and then it can kind of open up. And it's almost it's almost like the world becomes a mirror for you to look back at yourself, but also look at everyone. So yeah.
What kind of music was it that you was making?
We were just talking about what is and isn't the South, and maybe that'll come up. But I was making music that was similar to what was coming out of Texas at the time. So that Swisher House, Beltway 8, all those folks from Houston to Dallas. Yeah, that was kind of influencing me, but also I had these, because where I'm from is called the Miss Lou. So I had these Louisiana influences Master P, et cetera, et cetera. So I was talking about my personal experiences, but I was popping trunk as well. You know what I'm saying? I was talking about riding on 24s, but I was talking about the storyline of the weekend, right, as well.
Got it. So, copy.
Word.
I seen the craziest car yesterday.
Yeah. Down here?
Down here.
Okay.
It was a truck, it might have been I don't know what kind of truck it was, probably some Ford truck, but the wheels was like as tall as me and it was white with purple and black camo. I was like, you're not in New York no more.
Yeah, listen, I drove a lime green Lincoln Town car on 22s for like probably 3 or 4 years.
Oh, you from the South for sure.
Yes. It was
for how long you said?
For like 3 years, yeah. The only thing that stopped me is my son was on the way and I was getting pulled over a little.
I was going to say,
much.
it's
That's
just too
the only
little.
thing that stopped me.
Like I mean, that's like a star's car, right? Like,
yeah.
But the price of that is that you have no anonymity. Everyone knows where you're at all times, all day. You can't go anywhere if you're in Marshalls, or I don't know if y'all have Marshalls, if you're in whatever. They see you. That would stress me out.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun, you know? Because part of that is wanting to be seen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What about, like, learning? How do you prioritize learning and self-improvement amidst, like, the systemic barriers and inequalities that we know exist in the world, but also just for yourself?
Yeah, like as a writer?
Yeah, well, as a creative, I would say. Yeah.
I really, really, really pride myself in, not even pride myself, I find joy in like sort of beginner mindset. Like that's like the beginner's mind, kind of like a meditation thing, but just in general. Yeah. I like to be in a novice state. The way I think about it is like in the beginning of a video game. I don't know if you ever play like Pokemon or any of them. Like when you start off, you gain levels quick. Because you're such a beginner. And I like that like immediate feedback. So when I started with camera stuff, I didn't know anything, but you watch a couple YouTube videos, now all of a sudden I understand this exposure triangle. And I like watching a concept go from completely foreign to like almost crystallize in my mind. So I think that's kind of why I do a lot of different things, because there's a lot of opportunities to like grow to a certain state. And I think I have this idea that I want to be able to speak meaningfully. Like say I were to do like a film, like a movie, and I have done like little directorial stuff. Like I like to be able to, if I had to talk to the actors in their own language, talk to the director if I'm not directing in their own language, talk to the DP. I want to be able to talk about the depth of field, the aperture in their own language. I want to be able to talk to the sound designer about the gain and if they're peaking. I like the idea of like, if I had to, which is like what I have to do because I shoot stuff by myself sometimes, like I could do the whole thing from top to bottom by myself, including now like scoring something even, you know, like in terms of making the music. So I like the idea of that. And so that creates a lot of opportunity for me to become a beginner again. But it also, the thing that's cool about writing is every story to me, you feel like you're a beginner in the like sort of again. And obviously you have your fundamental principles, you have your core ideas that you're really interested in, that you kind of go, that you almost are like embedded into your DNA. But what I like about myself as a writer is I think part of why people have had trouble, like a conversation around me has always had to do with like genre or what is this? I think people don't really know what to do with it. Because I write, you know, sort of, there's like a multiplicity of style or even like realism / surreal. People, I feel comfortable moving in and out of that. And even my first book was a short story collection that had totally different registers of whether is this satire? Is this pure realism? Is this all these things that I think when you read my work makes you realize all those terms are limited anyways. So I like the idea of taking in newness and seeing how what happens when it passes through me, which is like another way of saying learning. And seeing how like that learning process like grows my capacity to make whatever. So I like, it's a really smart question. And I think some people don't like that feeling though. Like to me, the difference is like some people don't like the frustration because on the other side of learning the quick growth that happens in the beginning, there's also a lot of frustration of like, say you're making music or whatever, when you start off, you have an appreciation of what is good to you and the gap between you and that is really large. So that can be really frustrating for some creatives. To me, if you kind of let go of that process and drill into like the idea of your first song to your second song and see the jump from that is really gratifying. But if you pay too much attention to like where you're at, that's very true of writing as well. Like one of my professors, Mary Carr, used to say like your taste is way bigger than your skill when you start in anything. That's really frustrating for some people. But I maybe just like as a part of my personal hubris or whatever, I find it as like a gratifying acknowledgement of like, oh, that, I think I could get to that mountain. And so I like to compare myself to like my professors, people like George Saunders. I'm always like, that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
And I feel comfortable knowing I'm way down here, but just knowing I'm making progress feels very, I don't know. To me, it's one of my favorite things actually in life. So I like, it's a smart question because learning is a big, big, big part of my general.
Yeah.
Feeling like a beginner, feeling comfortable like with that beginner mindset is a big part of my approach to all creative everything.
Yeah, that is an amazing answer.
Sorry,
I was
long
thinking
answer.
about no, it's like the novice state is definitely powerful. But I definitely while you were talking about it, I was like, you know, some people don't know how to enjoy that, right?
Yeah.
And I think the beauty of that, like you said, the gaining of levels quickly, and then the gaining of the skill set to be able to have those language conversations with whoever is in that field is true. It's super powerful to the sustainability of like the pathway of learning. So that's what I was kind of thinking about while you were saying it, because if you don't have those tools, like my next question was going to be, how do you protect yourself in terms of protecting like your creative, I don't know, like your creative pursuit of learning, but even just your creative space, right?
Yeah.
Because like the other half of the question was about how do you do that along with systemic inequalities and you know, systemic barriers, right? But I wonder if those things even affect you, if you're like in a cocoon when you're in the creative process, or do those things kind of seep in?
Okay, yeah, that was the second half of the question. Crazy, I talked that much, I didn't even answer the whole question.
No.
It's, no, I'm not. So for me, because of like speaking to my first part, that first question, because I am, almost all of my work will somehow engage with some kind of systemic issue. And I don't try for that.
I was going to say, do you even try for that though? If it's just,
I just know that's what I care about.
Yeah.
And it's not even a systemic issue. It's just something that affects people on a large scale, right? So for me, I'm interested in the things that get people to sort of forget their humanity. I'm really interested in people, in like the different systems that we all buy into or we're forced to sort of participate in, which make us sort of feel okay stepping on someone's head, metaphorically or sometimes literally. And so in the learning process, I usually, the other part of it, that's again, this is a really smart question, things I talk about with like my creative like team that I be working with a lot. Like I'm very like project based. So I'll have like a project that is like I learn better where, okay, I'm about to go to Ghana, right? So, and I'm learning as a photographer. I was learning photography just before I went to Ghana after my dad passed. So I know I wouldn't be able to capture like that trip. So now I'm learning these things, but with the idea of there's a semi-concrete goal that I at least want to get at least sort of good enough to handle. The better example is maybe like with Chain Gang. Chain Gang is thinking a lot about the prison industrial complex, Chain Gang All-Stars, the novel. And that's a serious subject. And I'm very aware of like the landscape of the literary world. I mean, I'm not that aware, but I know what's going on. Yeah. And I also know that for better or worse, you will be judged harshly for trying to do something like that matters to the world wrong. Almost more harshly than if you just talked about bullshit about yourself. Yeah. But even without that being the case externally, internally, like I care to not misrepresent serious issues.
Yeah.
So what's cool about Chain Gang is it's a book that I know by the time I was like, once I understood like once I semi-understood the scope of it, but you really don't understand this, the way I write the scope of a book until you're done with it. I knew that I had to feel comfortable starting a book that was going to require me to be a much better writer than I was when I started. So I have to be learning. I have to be growing. I have to be tapped in. And what does that look like? It means reading really, really high level stuff for the whole time during pandemic. And it took me like 7 years to write that book. But like, and I have to feel, first off, I have to feel comfortable waiting that long because I have to get a lot better. I have to be reading only things I think are like world shatteringly like precise. And it felt really weird. Like, it's almost like your diet has to be perfect because you're training for like a big fight.
So I was going to ask, how are you sustaining that over 7 years, you know? And
I probably wasn't the whole time, but like by the time I was like in like pandemic was like training camp. You know what I'm saying? Like that was like the real training camp. It was like a 2-year, like I'm really not reading nothing that's not great. If anything, also it was hard to read in general. The world was like falling apart. But like the things that could break through the barrier had to be like, I had to really think of it. I was like precise, especially on like a line level. And it couldn't be like some like just fun, nothing like that. Because I knew I couldn't have that in my book. And so that's the larger part of it. But it's also literally reading craft books, not craft books, like craft talks.
Yeah.
Like I would go to, once the world opened back up, I go to these things and I attend events like a student. I have my notebook out. Sometimes when I'm getting interviewed, I'm not doing it right now, but I kind of am. Like I'll be taking notes in my head, like from what they're saying. I used to do it like on the stage.
Word,
and then I felt like it started becoming like it felt like people were viewing as performers, so I stopped. But like, cause sometimes people would like, also the question stopped getting, I had enough of the experience that I could like just internalize.
Well, you could hold them,
But yeah, so a book like this, my favorite thing about it is it forces me to grow, and not only as like a intellectual or something, because that's probably less important, but it made me a better person. That's a really important kind of learning too. It grew my capacity to be like compassionate, I think.
Yeah.
In a kind of radical ways, which I thought I had access to, but this book kind of forced me to put my money where my mouth is in some level and be like, but do you actually think this? Because once it goes out, it's out, and like there will be pushback, there will be whatever. And so that's all to say, I'm a project-based learner, and usually the projects that I'm dealing with are at least carrying on some of about systemic issues. And how do they affect me directly though? Just the same way I'm susceptible to like sadness and depression just because the world is fucked up. Sometimes I'm like, oh wait, it'd be cool if I had insurance. But all these things, they affect me just like whatever other situation. But it's also the fact that my work is concerned with those things directly and gives me like an air of seriousness that kind of makes my like training, if you want to call it that, have like a kind of not intensity, but like a discipline around it. And I do like the idea of like training and like growing and like that feels like to me it matters. Like I like that idea of like almost like the whole writing stuff is like Jedi Knights or something.
Yes. Listen, that is me 100%. Like I love the idea of training on anything. Like what is Akira Toriyama?
I know.
Toriyama. Yeah. That just shaped my life.
Yo, I was just thinking about that. Brother. Do you know how many people? I was in good and bad ways, because I was like, on the low, so many men have body dysphoria because of Goku and them.
Because of Goku,
for real. I can't wait till someone does a study about that.
I mean, and it's so right. It's so right for it, and I think it was beautiful to see just like how many men were like shaped by it. How many like,
dude, I don't give up now.
Yeah, I do not.
Toriyama's like, I'm not giving up.
Yeah,
and also to me, like what I love about Toriyama and like all of us who have been raised by his work is like there was like a more ethical component.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it's funny. Like I talk about anime with Chain Gang a lot too. Like not to like make it like cliche or something, or like hit the point too hard, but Goku could be talking to someone who's already killed a planet, multiple planets, Frieza, and he's still like, "I'm giving you one more chance."
Yeah.
I don't want to kill you no matter what. Like a true believer in the life being sacred. Like truly believing it. He's the strongest guy. And it built in a lot of us who actually understand it. Like strength is cool, but like honor is like more important.
It's more important. Yeah, like, it's insane.
Because Vegeta's strong, but that's my favorite character. Vegeta getting his ass whooped. Because he had a different kind of honor, but it was a more prideful honor, and I love that. And I feel more personally attached to that. Like
it was almost like two sides of a coin, right? Because Vegeta, it's like this. There's so many allusions to like black folk, right?
Yeah.
In this story, right? Because Goku's sent off, goes into this whole other planet, has no recollection of what he is and where he's from, and Vegeta has that. And so when he gets there, he's like, have some say in pride, and he's like, I don't know.
Pride.
You know what I mean?
It's his sin, and he has a lot of pride, and Goku has like almost none. He has pride, but Goku's like, I want to get stronger. That's it.
That's it. Yep.
And I don't mind. And sometimes it's almost like ridiculous, because it's like you should have a more emotional component to this guy, and it only happens if literally he watches like Krillin get blown up or something.
That's it.
But other than that, he's more like, you're pretty strong, even though like you pretty murked like 100 people.
Yes.
But no, I'm so grateful for him, and I've been kind of sad about Toriyama.
I really have, and I'm usually, I don't want to say this, but I'm usually like not that attached to those to people like when that happens, you know, I get it. I have respect for folks who are, because especially now, because I feel it.
Yeah.
Like I really feel it for the first time. I wouldn't say the first time. I mean, I felt it with Nipsey. But
Me
I
too.
felt, yeah.
But that's another person where there was like a moral, ethical, like, and him like intelligence component, like, and it was like obviously like, you know, complicated in a way that it understood itself. But yeah, to me, like it just matters so much to have like the terms are so stupid, and the term like alpha male, whatever, has been so like,
yeah.
But have a guy who's physically strong have his primary trait be kindness.
Yeah.
You know, that is like a lot of people who internalize that. Like that's a lot of net good has happened for the world.
Listen, like it's a beautiful thing. And thinking about what you said about Goku, like in this whole, you know, I just want to get stronger thing. What does success mean to you?
What a transition.
I do what I can.
That's another mindset. When you asked the first question, I was thinking of too.
Mindset shift. Yeah.
Mindset shift. Yeah. I've been super lucky, you know, and I used to, because of things like Dragon Ball Z and all these other things. I'm very much like, because even though we're saying all this, like Goku does want to be the strongest kind of in the universe, which requires like insane sacrifice. All the jokes about him being an absent father, and he kind of is
so absent,
and he like doesn't mind like dying for it, like for real.
Yeah.
I think there was a time where I was really like super obsessed, which is, again, I like to think about like where we got it from. We're all sort of born on planet Saiyan, like, or whatever they call it. Planet Saiyan?
Yeah. I think it was Planet Vegeta.
Planet Vegeta.
How could you not be prideful when the whole planet was there?
We are all kind of born of like capitalism is kind of Planet Vegeta. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like if you have to be the richest, got to be the strongest, or else like you die. And let alone like if you got kids, like you and your kids will suffer, and no one will really care. And again, like for me, coming from where I'm coming from with the certain like baggage I'm coming from, which have to do with like financial like worry, it gets really or die. But that's usually hiding some kind of like reaction to some other real pain or something. You worry about someone's health or this or that. So to me, I think like success now, again with the system, like I guess I say all that to say I used to, and a part of me still does care about this illusion of being like considered one of the best, if not the best, you know.
Word.
Which in art is completely an illusion. It really is.
Yeah.
There is no Serena, you know, you can't there is no LeBron, there's no Michael Jordan. Even that is, as we know now,
it's super subjective, right?
It's still subjective, even though they have a clear championship. And these things, like these medals in the book, those are chosen by people. And you have to kind of get those spaces to see it. So obviously there was a time where I conflated the idea of being involved in National Book Awards, getting a top 10 New York Times book or whichever award, and being like, oh, on that side of life, I'll get to be happy. I'll get to be this and that.
Yeah.
And that's super an illusion. And I know that now from experience, where some of my hardest years have been the years my books have come out. And actually, that's definitely been the case. So to me, success, all that said, because I'm a human being, I still do like really care for the respect of my peers.
Yeah.
Because people know, like, you know, when writers come into a room, people know who's like really like that person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's different when Amani comes through, like if you know her work, you know what she's about. She's like a real, like truly like a brilliant person. You know, when Amani Perry comes around, I see Clint Smith too. Same shit with him. Like I look up to people like that when like no one had doubted when Toni Morrison was walking around. And I think Jesmyn Ward to me is like the person in that lane. If you write fiction, like there's no way you could act like she does,
better or worse,
you know. And I do like that idea of that thing. And that comes with like the awards or whatever, but mostly it's like the respect. So success used to be that. But now I think I've been lucky that because if a book gets widely disseminated, its ideas can kind of come out into the world. And so like with Toriyama, like, I don't know what success was to him. Maybe it was to get $1 million, but like he sort of instilled like a honor honoring to the world.
Yeah.
And that's really big to me.
Yeah.
So to me, success is like, I know for sure, I feel like I've had some success in that I know that people, because I see them say it often, that have thought about abolition differently because they read my book. Or more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels really, so to me, success is if I could be one little drop in like the bucket of growing a more compassionate moral ethic, that's kind of big and hard to quantify.
Word.
But to me, that feels like, that's a spirit bomb. You know what I mean? That's like,
yeah.
That's like, that matters a lot. And so I feel like if I could do that, obviously the awards are great too. So if I could get those, I'll take them. But I'll take I'll take like an idea, like a sense that the ideas of my work have made, I don't know, the air change a little bit. Because I know Toyamas have.
Yeah.
And that's not that many people get to do that. That's really tough.
That's it's almost like this cool intangible thing. And I think, you was also talking about like obsession and this idea of like sacrifice that Goku kind of has, whether it's his own life or his, it's a little homie who's died multiple times for the cause of his ascension,
Yeah.
And I think a little bit about, the aspiration of like having the admiration of your peers, and whether or not obsession, admiration, and their part in success is a negative thing. And I don't necessarily think so.
No.
You know what I mean? Like I think some folks feel obsession is like necessary to a certain degree, right? And I think sometimes that word has like these nuances inside of it that some people view negative, but I just don't know that they are.
Another word is just like intense discipline.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the negative part of it is, for me, it was or die.
Yeah.
And I think that squeezes out some kindness for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It squeezes out some generosity for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where the bad comes. Like, I think about like football players, and for some of them, it's like or die.
Or die. Yeah.
And it's whether that's real or not, if it feels real, there's a lot of negative blowback just mentally. I know for sure.
Yeah.
And so people ask me a lot, like, what would you tell your younger self? And I'd be like, I wouldn't want to change anything because life has to be as it is. But I would hope that when I tell other writers, like, if you can find a way to continue this discipline while not making it or die, I would like try for that.
Yeah.
But that's really hard.
I was gonna say, is it possible?
I don't know how to, it's really tough to like create a super strong discipline as a young person and not have the stakes feel like life or death. And if you can do it, like, God bless, but like, it's just really, it's really difficult. So, but I am, and the word you used earlier was intangible, and like really quick, like that's the exact thing it is, like the power. I think about, okay, Goku is here, Majin Buu's here. I think of Majin Buu's like the real, like true ills of the world, like disease, famine, all these issues. You make the spirit bomb, that's the collective energy, that technology, resource, things that we create. And he throws it, right? But then Buu is strong, and so the spirit bomb's like, it's like in this like push, like this tug of war is coming back at you, because we'll destroy ourselves before these other issues we created, these issues for like nuclear shit will destroy us before the things we've created that are affecting the climate will destroy us before the world would have, And to me, the work that I'm trying to do is like when Goku accesses like first power back and he can like push the spirit bomb, like that invisible push. To me, that's like where my art is, and like a lot of my art is like it's that invisible push that's like, okay, we have the technology and all this stuff, but like where do we direct it? How do we use it like in a compassionate way? As opposed, because the spirit bomb is approaching actually all the time. Now I'm trying to like remind us of that. Like the things we made are actually going to kill us way before the things we created. The prison system is going to destroy us before so-called criminals would, And that's like trying to remind us, trying to direct it. That intangible push towards goodness is like how I think about my work and the work of the people I really like.
Man, it's powerful, powerful. Well, man, I appreciate you stopping by to chat.
No, I appreciate it.
It has been nothing but a blessing, brother, to chop it up with you.
That was good.
That was the good
Just talking about Goku.
I mean, where else can you just do that,
It's important. Rest in peace to Toyama the Go.
Yes, absolutely, man. I hope that he has like some stuff that he approved so that I can enjoy it further. But I'm kind of okay with it being done too.
They got a game coming out called Sandland, and I have never read that before. I think that's like, I think it's all stuff that you may not have looked at, but other than that, that might be it.
Yeah. What is it, 40 years, I think? 40 years, yeah. Word.
All that damage in 40 years, crazy.
Yeah.